Hey, what's up everybody? Dennis here. Alright, got another review for you. ATN X-Sight 5. So I know I did a review about 6 months ago, but we're kind of at my year anniversary with ATN. So I figured I'd do a 12-month review and break down the problems that I've had, my brother Bill has had, and then let's list the pros and cons of the X-Sight 5. Alright, let's get into this. So I got my notes. I've been trying to do this video for several days, over a week. It's either raining or really windy, so hopefully the wind's not too bad today. Alright, so I've had 3 X-Sight 5s. Bill and I, we both ordered our scopes back in April of 2023. I think we got them the end of May. That was the first batch that was sent out to everybody. So my first scope, it wouldn't hold zero, RAV was not working, date and time would not save. Didn't matter what I do, I couldn't get those to work or save. So somewhere around September, contacted ATN, I spoke to them over at tech support. I sent my scope back in because the first one wasn't working. Bill had the same issue. I think he's on number 3 also. So we sent the first scope back, got the second scope. I did use the second scope for hunting, harvested a lot of hogs, but also I missed several hogs. So scope number 2, RAV wouldn't work, it wouldn't calibrate to 308 platform here. The second scope also wouldn't hold the charge sometimes. And with that scope, I also noted anytime you pressed any of the buttons, especially zoom in or out, got a lot of clicking. Very loud clicking noise. You could actually hear it in some of the videos. The video quality wasn't good. The second scope, I went out on a paid hunt at night for hogs. Turned my scope on. We had hogs in front of us. The scope froze. So I had to reboot it, but it wouldn't turn back on. So we had a power issue. Thank God I had a backup 308 bolt action with me. We managed to get 2 hogs out. The other thing is I couldn't create and load profiles. So the biggest thing with the scope number 2 was this. I could zero the scope in. I took it to the range. I zeroed it in. My access number showed up. Came out hunting. I harvested 1 hog. And then 5-6 hogs in a row I missed. Took the video back, slowed it down. Crosshairs were where they needed to be on the hog. So I couldn't figure it out. So I posted on one of the forums on social media, and someone said, hey, every time you turn your scope in, go into zeroing. If you have access numbers, hit confirm. Your scope will be zeroed. So I went to the range and I tested it out. So yeah, if your scope does zero, but does not save zero, if you don't want to turn it back in, or you need a temporary fixed, an immediate fixed, what you do is turn your scope on, go into zeroing. If you have access numbers that show up, your gun is zeroed. It's just not saving it. So what you do is, if there's numbers there, just hit confirm. Your gun will be zeroed. So a little tip I learned the hard way. But thanks to another ATN owner, I had a temporary fix for scope number 2. Finally in February, couldn't come out hunting. Turkey season opened up. So I sent scope number 2 back. So when I sent it back, they sent me a brand new scope. So we're up to scope number 3. Now when I got this scope back, it had a 601 firmware. So 601 firmware was the new firmware before it was released to everybody, which would have been 702. I guess it was an internal firmware update, but it fixed all my issues, my date and time. Everything worked on my scope. So it was a bonus. So when 702 came out, I called them up and they're like, nah, don't worry about it. You got the latest firmware. So okay, no problem. Then 702 came out, improving video quality, nighttime hunting. Well, I wanted better quality. So I called them up and they're like, well, you have to send your scope in. We have to manually install each firmware update and reboot it after each install. So I had to send it back in. They did all the firmware updates, got the scope back, we're still good. So my scope right now has a 782 firmware. The video quality resolution is really good. So I've said in a lot of my past ATN X-Sight 5 videos that if there's a firmware update and you're not having problems, do not update or call tech support and see what they recommend. So I'm changing my whole theory, my whole outlook on that. If there is a firmware update, update it. Update your scope. Because if you skip it and the next one you need to do, your scope has to go in, so it is done by tech support manually. So I mean, either way you could have a problem. There's been problems after firmware updates. So I guess you got a 50-50 chance. Now my brother Bill, he's had 3 scopes too. He hasn't been able to get out and use it and hunt with it like I have. I've been hunting with the X-Sight 5 now since 9 months now. Back in January, February, March, I probably hunted 45 days straight with it. So I'm getting a lot of use out of it. I'm learning as I go, you know, little tips and tricks. The last video I did, the wind cut out everything. But after that video, it froze 3 times. I had to do a hard reboot 3 times. But after that, it's been working. So I figured out a little tip. I've noticed it on my other scopes. So when you turn your scope on, so I'm hog hunting. I don't turn it on until 30 minutes before dark. But I notice when you turn your scope on and the system reboots, go through your menu or zoom in and zoom out. So I think there's something going on with the system where if you just turn it on, you don't touch it, the scope thinks it's in a rest mode. So I've noticed that. So now when I turn my scope on, I'll go through the menu or zoom in and zoom out. I never have a problem after I do that. Alright, let's get into the pros and the cons. Alright, so the pros with this scope is you can accept, there's so many accessories for this scope. You got a remote control that you can use. Me, I've been using it so much I can close my eyes and know what button is what. The 240 slow-mo, that's huge. So when I do harvest an animal, I go into editing software and I have to slow down my video to show the harvest shot. The video photo quality has improved drastically after these updates. So that's really good to have high quality image. The other thing is I always film my hunts or anything I do. I film a lot of it. And of course now with YouTube, but it's nice to have a date and time on photo or video. So another thing I noticed with the battery life, battery lasts a long time. You get a good amount of usage out of one charge. I'm good for 3 to 4 days on one charge on the scope. A plus to that is with the firmware update, I believe it was 782, now you got a percentage for your battery charge instead of just bars. It's very versatile. I've been out in the rain, no issues with it. You can put on several different guns, different platforms. I have a quick detach on my scope, so I can move it around, have a multiple profile set up to switch in between guns or different bullets and calibers. Having a quick menu at your fingertips, that's a plus, like going into slow-mo if you wanted to. Of course, the one-shot zero. I know a lot of people that take one shot and the gun is zero. I'm not that type of person. Yes, it took one shot to zero the gun in, but I also had to walk it in to be exactly precise on my shot. So when I zero this gun in, it's about 3 shots, but the one-shot zero is really nice to have, and then you can fine tweak it afterwards. Like I said, the profiles is great. multiple guns, multiple platforms, multiple calibers, and you can save it all without re-zeroing after your initial zero. So my biggest pro for the ATN X-Sight 5 is customer support, especially tech support. Out of all the times I've called in the last 12 months, I only had one guy that just seemed like he didn't care. Everybody else I talked to took care of the issue. If they couldn't take care of the issue, they'd send you a scope and we'll get you a new one. Another thing is the accessories. I have the IR 850 Pro. My battery wasn't charging and I'm missing the rubber seal on the back of the light. I called up tech support and like, oh, we don't have those parts handy. We're just going to send you a brand new one. So now I have a second 850 Pro as backup or for parts. So you cannot beat their customer service or tech support. Out of all the companies I dealt with, I'm 53 years old. I've dealt with a lot of different companies and products. They are the best company I've dealt with when it comes to customer support and tech support. There's no issues, there's no questions. They try and fix it or solve it or replace it. Another big thing is you get a 3-year warranty on the X-Sight 5. Maybe it's because of all the issues in the beginning, but 3-year warranty, come on now. Alright, let's get into the cons. So I'm going to start off with the 240 slow-mo. There is a downside to that. I found out the hard way. 240 slow-mo can only be used during daytime hunting. You cannot use it in night mode. I hog hunt at night. So another thing, and this is just with any digital product. So when you zoom, I notice once you get to that 5, especially past 6 zoom, everything starts to pixelize. It kind of breaks up. Pitch is clear, but everything's kind of breaking apart. It's expected with a digital product, but it is a negative. A lot of people I've had it where your IR light, you get a washout or a whiteout after you take a shot. So right now, I had it forward closer to the muzzle. I moved it back about 3 inches, so I'm going to play with it, but I haven't had the opportunity to test it. So hopefully tonight is the night that I get to test it, and then I can do a video on that. The app is a pro and a con. It's great. You can have an app, upload crosshairs, etc. to the scope. So you can give your phone or device to somebody and show them what you're looking at if you're paired with your device. That's pretty cool, you know, if you got a spotter or whatever the case is. Another big thing with the app is you can go through and change all your settings in the app to save on your scope. So the negative on the app is this. I would like to be able to share on social media or go live on social media. I mean, I don't know how much it would take to add that into the app. How about being able to pair them and just transfer your videos and photos directly to your device? That would be my number one suggestion, instead of going to hardwire. You know, just pair up both the scope and your device and boom, transfer your files. You know, same thing with the firmware update. Instead of taking out the SD card, download on your PC, uploading it, and going through all this, boom, let's just do it through the Wi-Fi device and scope. Simplify it. A big negative, so in the last 12 months, out of my 3 scopes, I probably went through 12 boxes of ammo. So if we do the math, 12 boxes of ammo, 20 rounds per box, it can get and has been very expensive. So when there's an issue, you gotta zero your scope, and once you send it in, you get it back, it's gotta be zeroed. So whether it's a fix or a replacement, it's still gotta be zeroed. You know, then you gotta do your RAV, then you gotta test everything else out, tweak your zeroing, so it gets expensive. So the biggest unknown, the biggest negative part of this scope is the unknown and the past issues that the older versions have had. I've said in a few videos, if I go on a paid hunt, I'm going to make sure that I have another rifle with me. I always take my 308 bolt action. Always. I used to take it out here in the field until the third scope. To me, that is the biggest negative, is the unknown, if the scope's going to turn on, if it's going to work, if it's going to freeze, and knowing that all the past issues. So just about all the issues in the past have been fixed by the newer versions of firmware updates. Bill and I have not received hardly any messages, comments, concerns, or questions regarding X-Sight 5. So, and I would say probably somewhere around November, it really slowed down, but as of 2024, very, very few. Most of the comments we get are questions or recommendations. I got asked my settings on my scope. So I use high for night, and I'm using 1920 by 1440p with 120 frames per second. I tested out all 3 different resolutions, and I find that to be the best resolution, the clearest day and night. But I have noticed this. When you switch between day and night mode, you need to refocus. Also, when you change your resolution settings, you need to refocus. Just a few tips. So guys, I'm going to wrap this up because it's getting dark, and the hogs were out here last night on camera, So yes, ATN X-Sight 5. Alright, so I've had this scope for 12 months, but I've been using it regularly for the last 9 months. From my experience, the learning curve, tips, and figuring things out, I would still highly recommend this, even though there's been a lot of problems with it. It's a great product. On top of that, you cannot find a better customer support or tech support. And the scope's got a 3-year warranty. When it works, it works. So, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell, turn your notifications on if you want to get more ATN X-Sight 5 videos and hunting videos. Or if you love anything outdoors, hunting, shooting, fishing, cooking, grilling. Alright guys, we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.